In this free congregation, we come together without creed, focusing instead on the core values of justice, equity, and compassion.
Of mutual acceptance of our diverse ways of being as we seek to connect ourselves more fully with the unfolding truths of life and of our world.
We come together in shared conviction that all people deserve a voice in the matters that concern them, and that it is up to each of us to protect the rights of all, particularly those who, for whatever reason, have long been held in silence.
We come together in the stubborn belief that community is possible and that peace is more than a dream.
We commit together to affirm in our actions, as well as our words, the inherent worth and dignity of every human being.
We come together in awareness of our interdependence with all humanity and with the wider web of existence, for that too is part of what is meant by we.
In this free church, we come together without creed, believing that the way we live in the world bears testament to the values of our beliefs.
We light this chalice as a beacon of hope for who have gathered here this day and for all who have ever walked through our doors, for those who may yet find this spiritual home, and for those whose paths will never come our way.
For all of this, and for all those things we dare to hope and dream, we kindle our chalice flame this day.
Oh boy, didn't even request coming up yet, and you're up here. I see so many young folks out there, or younger folks. We do not card anyone who wants to come forward. We have our time for all ages, our Wonder Box time, and I'm seeing a ton of folks, and then sometimes they outgrow the cool and don't want to come forward, and that's cool too. But whoever wants to come forward, we're going to have our fun Wonder Box time. So thanks for getting up today. I'm sure your parents thank you as well for getting up so early. We have a topic today around hats, but I don't want that to give away what might be in the Wonder Box, so it could be anything. What do you think it might be today? Don't say anything. Yep. Okay, you said hats. What do you think? Oh, I like that. Thank you. Scarves. Keep that up. I like that. Think outside the box. Let's see what happens. Who would like to open it? From the bottom. Good. Oh, there she is. Scarves is next week. This week it is a little hat. Look at this one. I found this one and I thought, she looks good on me. What do you think? I like this one. That's a good one. Do you want to wear this one? You can try that one on. You never put on a hat and you just feel different? You just feel like your posture needs to change, or you talk. Oh, I like that one. Where's your skateboard? I like that. Anyone want to wear this one? Oh, yeah, I love that for you. There we go. So, oh, yeah, there you go. Safety first. Safety first. So, today we're going to hear a story. How many of you know this story, Caps for Sale? Okay, this is a generational story that I think is maybe closing in on 100 years, but maybe 70, it's at least 75 years old. And this story I was obsessed with growing up, called Caps for Sale. Now, we don't have to wear these hats throughout the rest of the day, unless you want to. But I just love this story because there's a little mischief, there's a little fun, and there's also a little bit of community that happens as well. So we're going to listen to this story now, Caps for Sale. And if you want to sit here, you can, or go sit in the front row so you can. It's a little too tight, yeah. We're going to enjoy this story now.
Once there was a peddler who sold caps, but he was not like an ordinary peddler carrying his wares on his back. He carried them on top of his head. First, he had his own checked cap, then a bunch of gray caps, then a bunch of brown caps, then a bunch of blue caps, and on the very top, a bunch of red caps. He walked up and down the streets, holding himself very straight so as not to upset his caps. As he went along, he called,
Caps! Caps for sale! 50 cents a cap!
That's a great deal.
One morning, he couldn't sell any caps. He walked up the street and he walked down the street, calling,
Caps! Caps for sale! 50 cents a cap!
But nobody wanted any caps. That morning, nobody wanted even a red cap. He began to feel very hungry, but he had no money for lunch.
I think I'll go for a walk in the country,
said he, and he walked out of town slowly, slowly, so as not to upset his caps. He walked for a long time until he came to a great big tree.
That's a nice place for a rest,
thought he, and he sat down very slowly under the tree and leaned back little by little against the tree trunk, so as not to disturb the caps on his head. Then he put up his hand to feel if they were straight. First his own checked cap, then the gray caps, then the brown caps, then the blue caps, then the red caps, on the very top. They were all there, so he went to sleep. He slept for a long time. When he woke up, he was refreshed and rested. But before standing up, he felt with his hand to make sure his caps were in the right place. All he felt was his own checked cap. He looked to the right of him, no caps. He looked to the left of him, no caps. He looked in back of him, no caps. He looked behind the tree, no caps. Then he looked up into the tree, and what do you think he saw? On every branch sat a monkey. On every monkey was a gray or a brown or a blue or a red cap. The peddler looked at the monkeys. The monkeys looked at the peddler. He didn't know what to do. Finally, he spoke to them.
You monkeys, you!
He said, shaking a finger at them.
You give me back my caps.
But the monkeys only shook their fingers back at him and said, This made the peddler angry, so he shook both hands at them and said,
You monkeys, you! You give me back my caps.
But the monkeys only shook both their hands back at him and said, Now he felt quite angry. He stamped his foot and he said,
You monkeys, you! You better give me back my caps.
But the monkeys only stamped their feet back at him and said, Tss, tss, tss. By this time, the peddler was really very, very angry. He stamped both his feet and shouted,
You monkeys, you! You must give me back my caps.
But the monkeys only stamped both their feet back at him and said, Tss, tss, tss. At last he became so angry that he pulled off his own cap, threw it on the ground, and began to walk away. But then each monkey pulled off his cap. And all the gray caps, and all the brown caps, and all the blue caps, and all the red caps came flying down out of the tree. So the peddler picked up his caps and put them back on his head. First his own checked cap, then the gray caps, then the brown caps, then the blue caps, then the red caps on the very top. And slowly, slowly he walked back to town calling,
Caps! Caps for sale! 50 cents a cap!
The end.
So what morals you might draw from that is going to be an interesting one to try to figure out. Or was this just a favorite book that Nick wanted us to listen to? It's a little bit of both. There's a lot in there, and there's nothing in there. But what's important is that sometimes a little symbolism like the hats we wear, or having a little conflict with other people, monkeys or cats we might be in relationship with. Like in community, for example, there's no one playing any one particular role here. It can be helpful for us as we think about the work we're trying to do here and in the world. So I hope you enjoyed that story. It definitely brought back flooding memories from my childhood listening to that story, and maybe you want to pick up a copy as well if you don't have one. So we're going to sing you out to your classes because I think you're going to have a lot of fun today, and there's quite a lot of you to have fun in our children's and youth program. So why don't we sing you out to your classes?
I've read about our topic this morning. I haven't read the book yet, but I've read about it, The 6 Thinking Hats. And it sounds different to me, and yet it sounds familiar to me. When I was working in elementary schools, there was a time when the word metacognition was introduced to the staff. The idea of thinking about thinking and helping students to begin to think about how they think. The 6 Thinking Hats is metacognition, but it further specifies thinking about thinking into thinking about types of thinking. We each think, we address situations in a variety of ways, and we tend to have approaches in which we are most comfortable. I recently decided that there is a person I really do not enjoy lunching with. It is not Mark. It is somebody else. Because they seem to be most comfortable in negative thinking. The food is too salty, too cold, or too hot. The portions are too large or too small, and the server is too slow and not attentive. And that's the whole meal. And it's like, Awareness of different types of thinking can help us as individuals and as a community. Certainly, working in groups with variety in the group members' approaches produces results. One day, I watched a skilled kindergarten teacher introduce the idea of working together on a group project. She divided her class into 4 groups. The facilitators, who kept everyone engaged and the project running smoothly. The suppliers, who made sure that the right materials were at hand. The observers, who gave feedback as to how the proceedings, the project was going. And the recorders, who used drawings and words to document the proceedings. These are kindergartners. She explained the jobs, and she provided practice for each job. And then she created several groups of 4 children each, 1 actor from each of those 4 job groups. She presented the task to be done. She provided support. This was not a one-day lesson, not a one-day lesson. And the children did the work, and they had amazing results. We can learn from these children. We benefit from different ways of thinking. We benefit from the different social roles that we discussed in our UU community read, Social Change Now. All of these examples, though, are keeping a larger truth in front of us. Our UU value of pluralism is a good thing. The differences among us may not always be comfortable, but they are essential. May we manage to appreciate and benefit from our diversity.
We actually have 2 readings today. one of which I'm sure you've been waiting for, an excerpt from 6 Thinking Hats by Edward de Bono. Each of the 6 thinking hats has a color: white, red, black, yellow, green, blue. The color of each hat is also related to its function. The white hat. White is neutral and objective. The white hat is concerned with objective facts and figures. The red hat. Red suggests anger, like seeing red, rage, and emotions. The red hat gives the emotional view. Black hat. Black is somber and serious. The black hat is cautious and careful. It points out the weaknesses in an idea. The yellow hat. Yellow is sunny and positive. The yellow hat is optimistic and covers hope and positive thinking. The green hat. Green is grass, vegetation, and abundant, fertile growth. The green hat indicates creativity and new ideas. And the blue hat. Blue is cool, and it is also the color of the sky, which is above everything else. The blue hat is concerned with control, the organization of the thinking process it thinks about, and the use of the other hats.
Our second reading this morning is called Bringing Conflict to the Table by Glennon Doyle. Conflict resolution is, in fact, one of the greatest things you can accomplish in your life and in your relationship. When I view people as not bringing conflict up, I think it's being unfaithful to the relationship. I think it's an abdication of your role in the relationship, and you are actually foisting on the other person the responsibility to resolve your conflicts, the responsibility to speak those things out loud, because people go their whole lives never voicing any conflict. Not because there isn't conflict, but because they're either too lazy to do it, they don't have the trust in their partner to receive it, or they're just like, you know what? I tried that for 7 years and not a damn thing changed, and I'm done. And that's when you get into scary places in your relationship. When I catch myself, these are not my words. I'm reading somebody else's words. I wish this were me. When I catch myself not bringing up conflict, I'm like, ooh, red flag. It is an atrophy of the relationship because it's an investment. The willingness to bring conflict to the table, to make yourself vulnerable, shows a faith in your relationship, an investment in a relationship, a belief that your relationship could be better than it is. And if you do not bring conflict at the table, you are saying, my relationship is never going to get better. It's going to be the same every day, over and over.
For several years now, we've held an annual service around this time of year that focuses on a theme chosen by a member of the congregation who purchased the right to do so at the UUCCI auction. Each year, I have waited with bated breath for what topic was to come. Well, except the year Mark Kevitt had the honors, he chose Lincoln, of course. This last fall, the Wiley, Dick Wiley, had the top bid. And when I found out, I thought, oh boy, I better buckle up. For those unfamiliar with Dick, he is an avid reader, a very knowledgeable and insightful person, and someone who encourages the learning and growth of others. Not surprisingly, one Sunday he showed up with a book, one of thousands he's read throughout his life, and said, "Good luck." As I looked down at the book in my hands, I took a deep breath and read the title, Six Thinking Hats by Edward de Bono. All right, this looks interesting, I thought. Also, it's not that thick of a book compared to what I see Dick sometimes carrying around on some Sundays. Then I read a little closer to the front cover, Six Thinking Hats, the, in all caps, international bestseller that has changed the way the world's most successful business leaders think. Okay, now that's a subtitle. Clearly, there is some curiosity and possibility, Dick believes, to see the two worlds of business organization and leadership on the one hand and religious community and UCCI perhaps on the other, and how they might relate. Thus, the task at hand this morning. After reading the book, I see some important connections between the 40-year-old now classic text and our Unitarian Universalist congregation. Most notably, the connection for me emerges from how both businesses and congregations exist to fulfill their missions and their goals, their purposes in life. Both for-profit and not-for-profit enterprises share a desire for effectiveness and deploy tactics to be successful, ideally. De Bono sees one of the biggest detriments to success is the conflict that arises from decision-making when you bring diverse people together who tackle problems differently. To address this, he offers a framework for imagining 6 different hats that people often wear when making decisions. I named them during the first reading: white, red, black, yellow, green, blue. Each symbolic, a symbolic hat, like a real hat, is one that can be taken off, and each of us are not singular in nature, but tend to wear different hats depending on the situation and the conversation. We also might tend to have a more common hat, or hats we don most often, our go-to. I anticipate some of these hats seem to fit you more than others when I read them earlier. I want to read them one more time to try them on again as I read, and as I read the description for each, consider how they show up in your life. If you want to out yourself, just raise your hand, but you don't have to. So the white hat. White is neutral and objective. The white hat is concerned with objective facts and figures. The black hat is somber and, the red hat, I'm sorry. The red hat suggests anger. No, seeing red, rage, and emotions. The red hat gives the emotional view. Black hat. Black is somber and serious. The black hat is cautious and careful. It points out the weakness in an idea, the devil's advocate. Yellow hat. Yellow is sunny and positive. The yellow hat is optimistic and covers hope and positive thinking. Green hat. Green is grass, vegetation, and abundant fertile growth. The green hat indicates creativity and new ideas. And finally, the blue hat. Blue is cool, and it is also the color of the sky, which is above everything else. The blue hat is concerned with control, the organization of the thinking process, and the use of the other hats. So at the core of this book, I think, is a wish to not only be more effective in decision-making, but to ultimately embrace the diversity of a community rather than wish it away within our organizations. The emphasis is on the value of creating a community which sees the value in each hat and person rather than suppresses or discourages ways of being or participating in community. This relates most obviously to our Unitarian Universalist principle of pluralism. Pluralism is our acknowledgement and appreciation for the sacred diversity of our humanity, which includes how we experience the world. This relates not just to big questions of truth and meaning, of ultimacy, of spirituality and ethics, but also how we live and move in this world. Your own personality is of value in a pluralistic society, not in a fascist one. In a pluralistic society, your personality has value, and not just in our case, and not just in the case of our larger world views and cultural traditions, but in the here and now in this community. So in this context of the 6 thinking hats, we could say that all of us are needed in order to effectively live out our mission and strive towards our vision at UUCCI. We need all of us, not some of us, to feel welcomed and included. We need all of us. And in turn, we need to embrace the ways we think and engage in community as a gift. In my research as a doctoral student, I've been exploring the work of pluralism. And one question I consider often is whether Unitarian Universalism's value of pluralism is not only an ethical commitment, but an existential one. We value pluralism because we are inherently pluralists at our core, at our very being. I think we can make this argument pretty easily when we consider an essential quality of UU community, namely that we are a non-creedal faith tradition. A creed is a set of beliefs that demarcate who is and who is not in this circle of identity. Most Christian communities and other Western religious traditions are founded upon a set of theological commitments, of beliefs. Unitarian Universalists, on the other hand, do not require uniformity of belief, of theological belief, seeing, on the other hand, the value of diverse points of view. Instead of gathering around shared belief or creed, we gather around common values or principles that are important to us, ways of being in the world. Pluralism is one of these commitments, and together we covenant to foster pluralistic community, to draw a circle wide enough that it can embrace the fullness of life that resides beyond, among, and within each of us. As I read de Bono's book, I wondered then whether this framework can be one way to practice pluralism within our community, upon our interfaith campus as well, and in our pluralistic society at large. I think the answer is yes, because in both business and social communities, conflicts are inevitable. Wherever 2 or more are gathered, a conflict is likely just around the corner. And this conflict is an admission. The conflict is an admission of the pluralism inherent or possible within a community. That's a good thing. The work of our community and of our lives generally is not to run away from conflict or wish it away, but to seek resolution and peace in the face of these conflicts. In the reading Chris offered from the podcast by Glennon Doyle and other wonderful people, she says, conflict resolution is in fact one of the greatest things that you can accomplish in your life and in your relationship. While a lot of this quote is about interpersonal relationships, likely related to romantic partners, the sentiment, I think, is very applicable to the conversation at hand. In religious community or business or personal relationships, there is a requirement, or at least an enhancement, that comes from valuing the relationships enough to bring up our differences. However, if you are wearing a hat that is non-normative in a given conversation or group, it can make you feel uncomfortable, because bringing up difference is acknowledging inherent conflict within diverse communities, and thus it perhaps feels like it risks the relationship altogether, regardless if that is an employment relationship, a loving relationship, or a covenantal or communal one. Doyle says, quote, "The willingness to bring conflict to the table to make yourself vulnerable shows a faith in your relationship, an investment in a relationship, a belief that your relationship can be better than this," end quote. So whether you are more neutral and objective in outlook, emotional and passionate, optimistic or somber, whether we gather to discuss a way forward through complicated situations, to the many complicated situations we face, your presence is needed. Not just your strength, but your vulnerability is what makes this community vital and growing. Not just your strength, but your vulnerability is what makes this community vital and growing. And it both makes sense, right? I hope, and it is easier said than done, that bringing our authentic selves to a conversation, community, or life situation is important and yet vulnerable. When we are all our authentic selves, including the blessing that we are not bound to one hat, even if one or two fits a bit better or goes with our outfits better, it is a gift that we are not bound to one. It is a gift to be in a community, though, where we think for ourselves and for our collective community, and then consider how society needs all the colors of the rainbow to shine through our hats, through our lives, and our world, a reflection of our world. Like I said, it's easier said than done to be a multicolored, multicultural, hat-wearing, conflict-embracing congregation. One thing that helps is what I mentioned above, which de Bono emphasizes often in his book. These hats are not our personalities. They are not us. They do not define us or confine us to one way of being. Sure, I tend to wear not only a yellow hat, but rose-colored glasses. And I see the abundance and possibilities, the verdant, emergent possibilities of the green hat, which is a nice allusion to the green and gold of the Green Bay Packers. Rest in peace. It's a hard evening. But I also know there are times where I need to put on a different cap or understand how my hat or my presence can be exhausting or conflicting with the hat that you might be wearing or the way you might be seeing the situation. And that's okay. This entire month, for example, we are practicing holding weekly town halls after service to engage in some deep thinking around areas of our congregational life that we wish to seek to be more vital and growing. So last Sunday, as mentioned, we discussed music. And then after service today, we will turn to the topics of adult classes and programs and the things we want to see. And in the next 2 weeks, the themes of the town halls will turn to social justice and our interfaith campus. Easy topics. The point is that each of these town halls represent a bit of uncertainty and naturally some conflict that can emerge when you have different folks come together with different ways of seeing a problem, or as I like to see optimistically, an opportunity before us. And when we are in these conversations, which I hope you will stay around for, you might consider, what hat am I wearing in this moment? Is there another one I want to try on? Or is the person next to me wearing a different hat than me, and is that a reason I'm either resonating with them or wanting to move away? These questions can foster curiosity and empathy and build bridges across our differences. The 6 thinking hats, in other words, can help us to practice conflict resolution and come to see conflict as an opportunity to embrace pluralism. In this essence, pluralism can be seen not as a burden to be managed, but a blessing to be maintained through hard work and loving care for one another and this community and world in general. Because we also embrace values such as transformation and interdependence. Because we do so, our pluralism will benefit from an appreciation of the different hats we wear, and our humanity will be realized through justice and equity by not preventing us from trying on new hats and looking into the mirror and saying, you know what? That hat looks good on you. When I look out at this sanctuary of beloveds, I see a whole bunch of hats and smiling faces, and some very focused ones. And even though there are too many conflicts and questions we will face in the days ahead, I am grateful. I really am grateful and relieved that despite these complexities and challenges, there most certainly is a cap for that. May we be so fashionable to make it so. Amen, and blessed be.